If We're Being Honest, by the Queen of Wump. Read for you. Chapter 2, The Quirkless Kid. This chapter does have some trigger warnings, so if any of the following trigger you or offend you, this video just might not be your cup of tea, and that's totally fine. So the trigger warnings are mentions of bullying, depression, anxiety, quirkless discrimination, and minor past suicidal thoughts. So again, if any of these offend or trigger you, maybe just find another video to watch, and I'll see you next time. After class was finally over, Izzy tried to make a run for it. He really did. He figured if he could get back to the dorms quick enough, he could hide in his room to avoid any questions his classmates would ask him. Could he get permission to stay in his room for the whole month? No, that was too much. But as he was packing up his stuff in record time, Aizawa's voice made him flinch. Midoriya, please see me after class. Izuku very pointedly avoided everyone's gazes as they left. Well, except for Shoto, Uraraka, and Ida, who looked at him with a great deal of worry in their eyes. But Izuku just waved them off with a promise to meet them back at the dorms. Once everyone had left, Izuku made his way to the teacher's desk with a sense of foreboding. Look, sir, I'm sorry you were forced to reveal that in front of the class, Aizawa said, much softer than before. Surprising, Izuku. I also apologize for my rudeness. I know something like quirk status isn't easy to share. I was simply taken aback and ashamed that we didn't accommodate for your lack of experience correctly. Izuku looked at him, mouth agape in shock. It's my fault for not telling you. No, that is All Might's fault. And he held up his hand before Izuku could defend the previous number one hero. He had a responsibility to teach you as his protege that was more important than his secret. Even telling just me would have been enough, and I'm sure you're well aware that I wouldn't have said anything to anyone. Izuku nodded. I understand, but he also valued his image as a natural-born hero too much for me to have asked anything else of him. And I got it under control eventually, right? I was able to train with someone who knew about it during our internships. Aizawa huffed, seemingly considering his words. I was wondering why you chose such a bizarre internship, even if that was your only offer. And I know you look up to All Might, and that the trust you have in him isn't misplaced. I simply believe he could have handled the situation better. Izuku sighed. Aizawa was right, if he was being honest. All Might could have shared his problem with more of the teachers. Maybe he could have been training more effectively, and maybe he would have even had more control right now. I'm glad you think I'm right, problem child, Aizawa said dryly. Blinking in surprise, Izuku realized he had said all of that out loud. Again. I've got to stop doing that. His teacher simply chuckled. At least you have an excuse right now. Try and work on that now, and it'll be easier when this blasted quirk wears off. He gave him a determined nod. I'll do my best, sir. Izuku was hoping for some sort of miracle. Really, anything could have worked. He could throw up on the spot as soon as he walked into the dorms and rush into his room claiming to be sick. All of his classmates could have been suddenly hit by a different quirk that would make them unable to speak. Or maybe only able to speak Russian? He could spontaneously break his arm and have to go see a recovery girl immediately. Actually, that last one might have been doable. Unfortunately, though, none of these seemed to occur before he made it to the dorms, and he was walking very slowly, too. And, as luck would have it, all of his classmates were sitting in the common area, obviously waiting for him, except for... There you are, Shota said, coming up to him from where he'd clearly been pacing. He reached out and gave Izuku's hand a reassuring squeeze. Are you okay? Was it bad that he liked this version of his boyfriend more, who was more open and wasn't quite out of fear or awkwardness or just plain fear? Of course he loved every part of him, but he hated seeing how much Shoto struggled because of things he couldn't control, like anxiety. Anxiety was a bitch. I'm perfectly fine, and I'm going to go up to my room now, he tried to say. I'm slightly panicking about this, but for some reason, I really don't want to be alone right now. He hadn't even realized it until he said it, but he really didn't want to be alone. If he was, he would certainly start spiraling, and nothing good would come of that. This truth quirk knew him better than he knew himself, apparently. And the thought was only slightly terrifying. You can come sit with us, Deku, Uraraka said from her place on the long couch. She was sitting next to Ida, and between her and Sue, there was enough room for him and Shoto. We'll try our best to respect your boundaries. Right, guys? A chorus of agreements rang out, and Izuku could tell they had discussed this before he arrived. It honestly warmed his heart that they could be so considerate of him, and he was certain that they wouldn't hesitate to let him go up to his room if he wanted to. And oh boy, was there a part of him that wanted to, but the thing was that he trusted them. Just like he had told All Might. These people were his family, and he needed their support right now. Okay, Izuku said, shocked beyond all words that he was able to keep all that to himself. But still, I trust you guys. You're like a family to me. Aw, Midoriya! Mina gushed from her seat. We love you too! Izuku couldn't help the mistiness in his eyes at her words. He was still holding Shoto's hand, and he subconsciously latched onto Urarakus as they sat down. Yeah, love you guys. The silence that followed wasn't exactly awkward, but it was obvious that nobody knew quite what to say. Izuku definitely had no idea how to break the ice. What do you say when you accidentally blurt out one of your biggest secrets? I feel like we're gonna be here a lot, Shoto stated bluntly, cutting off the silence. If this quirk continues how it's been going. A couple people chuckled at his meager attempt at starting the conversation with a joke. I feel like we should set some ground rules now. Like, no asking direct questions unless the person gives explicit permission, Kaminari said, before awkwardly rubbing the back of his neck. As much as we can help it, anyway. This quirk really is making your words work for you, isn't it? Kirishima teased. Kaminari stuck his tongue out at him, but he laughed nonetheless. Yeah, you could say that. But he's right, Ida said. We should try to keep those questions to a minimum, especially when secrets come out. We should only be together if the person feels comfortable with it. He glanced at Izuku. Are you comfortable with us being here? You said you didn't want to be alone, but we can limit this to a small group. Izuku shook his head, smiling despite his turning gut. Honestly, you all already know most of the story, and like I said, I trust you. He paused for a second and took a deep breath. And guys can ask me questions if you want. Go ahead. Are you sure? Several people asked this, and other variations of it at the same time, which made him smile even wider. Yeah, I am. Plus, I want everyone to know that we can trust each other, in case something like this happens with anyone else. He let his words hang in the air, and everyone seemed to realize what he was saying. More people were probably going to reveal their secrets, and he wanted to set a good precedent of communication and support. He was just going to ignore the anxiety in his gut for now, he supposed. How did he give you his quirk? Yamomo asked almost immediately, causing everyone to stare at her. Face red, she quickly spoke again. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to sound insensitive. I've just been wondering, and once you said we could ask questions, I just couldn't keep my mouth shut anymore. It's okay, Izuku said, giving her what was hopefully a warm smile. If you mean the how as in the type of quirk it was a transferable type of quirk that's been passed down for 9 generations. And if you mean the transferring part, I ate a strand of his hair. Everyone stared at him. Shoto was looking at him very strangely. What? I ate a strand of his hair. DNA transfer. Very anticlimactic, if you ask me. And as if a switch had been flipped, the tension in the room was gone, and it was replaced by 20 hysterically laughing teenagers. Even Katsuki was hiding a chuckle or two. With the tension gone, the questions flowed out of everyone's mouths easily. Izuku did his best to answer them all as best he could. No, All Might never broke his arms. No, he didn't know who all had held it before. But he did know that the person who held it before All Might looked like his mother, apparently. Yes, he could transfer it if he wanted to. No, he didn't want to. No, he wasn't going to accidentally give it to Shoto by kissing him. That question left him very red in the face, and he didn't have to look to know that the other boy was red too. No, he didn't seek out All Might. He was just sort of at the right place at the right time. That's so lucky, though, Mina said excitedly at that. To think of the number 1 hero choosing you? Izuku looked down and thought. He used to think the same thing, that it was all luck, and that he had almost nothing to do with it. Some of it was definitely luck, but a lot of it was him too. He told them just as much, not really going into detail, but still getting the point across. All Might helped me realize that I really did put in a lot of work into being able to handle his power. I trained pretty much ruthlessly for almost a year, and I could still hardly handle it. At least my arms didn't fly off. Man, no wonder you broke all your bones, Kirishima said with a low whistle. Your arms flying off makes what you did at the sports festival sound tame. Yeah, that was pretty intense. He glanced at Shoto, who seemed to be looking down guiltily. And I would do it again if it meant you would still use your fire. Wait, someone said quietly. Why didn't he use... I have a question, Sue said. I have a question, Sue said, unknowingly cutting off whoever was already talking. Izuku could feel Shoto relax beside him, glad that wasn't about to come up. Yeah, ask away, he said absent-mindedly, still a bit worried about what the particular topic being breached. What was your quirk before One for All, Ribbit? Did it go away, or did it somehow combine with All Might's? One question not asked, but one that might have been worse in its place. Definitely worse for Izuku, at least. Well, better him than Shoto, he supposed. He almost shot a hand to his mouth to stop himself, but the quirk was too fast. I didn't have one. I was quirkless. And just like that, the tension in the air was back in full force. Almost worse than before. Actually, scratch that. Definitely worse than before. Izuku forced himself not to hyperventilate. So what if they knew he was a part of the slowly dwindling minority of people? So what if they knew that he was powerless most of his life? So what if his classmates knew that he had been seen as worthless? I was really hoping no one would bring that up. He couldn't help but say as everyone either stared at him or very pointedly avoided his gaze. I'm not sure how you guys will see me now, if I'm being honest. That was redundant to say, wasn't it? No one laughed at the joke at this time, and the air was just as thick, if not thicker. I didn't know, Uraka finally said from beside him. He had forgotten he was still holding her hair in Shoto's hands. So that time you saved me, that was your first time ever using a quirk at all? He felt himself nod. He seemed to be strangely detached from his body. Whether that was good or bad, he didn't know. Yeah, I was terrified, to put it lightly, but I knew I couldn't just sit there, and my body just moved on its own. Uraka let go of his hand. He was about to ask what he had done wrong when her arms flew around him in a bone-crushing hug. Thank you for saving me, she whispered, and her voice was a bit wet. You're going to be a great hero, Deku. The best. And now his eyes were definitely not dry as he hugged her back. Thank you. And you too. You saved me right after, remember? She giggled through her tears against his neck and just held him tighter. Quirkless people are statistically more likely to develop depression and anxiety, Ida said quietly from next to them, though it rang throughout the whole room. Izuku felt his blood run cold. They're also more likely to be bullied and not reach the age of 18 due to hate crimes and suicide. Izuku pulled away from Uraraka very slowly. Yeah, I know. He looked at Ida, who was red in the face and had his hands clamped over his mouth. At Izuku's questioning gaze, he lowered them and spoke. I didn't mean to say that out loud, I swear. He looked at him with something close to anguish. I'm worried for you. You're my friend. Izuku tried his best to smile. It was probably very strained. It's okay, Ida. It's not like everyone here didn't already all know that. And it was true. They had studied quirkless statistics in their hero course because they needed to know how to help those who couldn't help themselves. Zuko kept his head down for most of that week. It seemed that everyone else was remembering what he, someone who already always participated in class discussions, had barely spoken a word during those lessons, and the worry on their faces deepened. As if sensing an oncoming panic, Izuku waved his arms in what was hopefully a placating gesture and gave his best fake smile. I'm fine now, guys, really. I'm happy I have all you guys. And I have a quirk. And I don't know what else to ask for, really. Now, Shoto said quietly beside him. Stupid truth card, making everything I say technically accurate, he thought bitterly, a smile still on his face. Yeah, I'm fine now. He tried to say it nonchalantly, like nothing was amiss, but most of the class was definitely smarter than that. They weren't in the top hero program in the country for nothing. Meaning you weren't okay before, Sue said after a moment of silence. She wasn't ever one to beat around the bush. I guess you could say that, he said in defeat, smile slipping off his face, knowing this confrontation was happening, whether he wanted it to or not. Did you ever try to, you know, Shoto said from next to him, eyes very pointedly trained on the floor. He seemed to be trying very hard to keep his face blank. He never finished, but the hesitation, even with the truth quirk, made what he was asking clear as day. No, Izuku said immediately. Tension left everyone's bodies at that, some of them literally releasing their held breaths. But the stress on everyone's shoulders was back, and Izuku cursed his stupid quirk for the thousandth time. I was definitely depressed. I didn't really have a future. He looked down at his hands in his lap, closing himself off from the world as he spilled his deepest secrets, even deeper than his quirklessness. I can't say I never thought about it. Shoto and Uraraka instantly grabbed his shaking hands tightly as soon as he said that. He had held on to them for dear life. He could feel Ida's hand on his shoulder and Sue's on his knee. He must have closed his eyes at some point, or they were too full of tears for him to see anything. You can go to your room, Midoriya, someone said. He vaguely wondered how hard everyone was trying to stay quiet. If you don't want to say anything else, we can all leave if you need us to. He shook his head and ignored his heart pounding against his ribcage. It's okay. It almost feels good to get this off my chest. I never told anybody, not even my mom. The words were pouring from his mouth now, and he wasn't sure if he could stop them even if he tried. I didn't tell her about the anxiety or the bullying or the suicide baiting or the way the teachers looked at me like I was a pity project or the guilt about how my dad left and I thought it was my fault because he didn't want a quirkless son. I never told her anything because I didn't want to burden her. He was struck with a sudden realization and his stomach dropped. And here I am now, shoving this on you guys. Don't. Uraraka lifted his chin so he was looking her dead in the eyes. The same eyes that now had several tear tracks under them. If you think for even 1 second that we won't support you with everything we have, then you can suffer 19 hugs at the same time until you finally get it through that thick skull of yours. Maybe even 20 if we can rope Aizawa into it. He snorted lightly through his tears. I doubt he'd agree to anything like that. Probably not, she said with a slight smile. But I know everyone here wouldn't hesitate to throw themselves headfirst into helping you. Right, guys? A loud chorus of agreement rang throughout the room, as if it had been rehearsed. He looked around to see everyone giving him wide, tearful grins, and he couldn't help but smile back. But you are okay now, Ida asked him, worry ever present in his eyes. It looked like he had been crying as well, and Izuku's heart broke a little. He felt his smile slip away. Relatively, yeah. I'm much better. I still get sad sometimes for like no reason, and I'm still a little anxious at times. And getting out of bed is sometimes harder than it should be too. And being All Might's successor can be pretty stressful, I guess. I see. Ida pushed his glasses and looked down like Izuku's weirdly specific answer was completely normal. May I ask that you inform someone if things are getting bad again, or tell one of us if you're feeling that way? He felt himself nod, and tears slowly filled his eyes, but he was able to keep them from falling. If you guys want me to, I can, but I don't want to be a burden or anything. You're not. It was Shoto's turn to gently turn his head and look into his eyes. You aren't and never will be a burden. We all care about you, and we won't stop caring unless you become part of the League of Villains or something. Even I think I'd follow you, because I trust your judgment more than the Hero Commission. That got a bit of a laugh out of Izuku again, and he watched as something softened in Shoto's eyes at the sight. Noted. Please don't join them, Jiro said, sounding a bit frightened. I don't think Japan would stand a chance. Izuku looked at her in surprise, but everyone else seemed to jump on what she said, saying he would be a terrifying force to reckon with. Don't worry, that's not something I plan on doing. Trust me. He felt a bit touched that they thought so highly of him. In a weird way. You're so strong, Midoriya, Yamamomo said suddenly. And not just with your quirk. You smile every day even though you've been through all of that. You really will be a great hero. More words of affirmation rang throughout the room, and once again, Zuko couldn't contain his tears. Thanks, guys. That means a lot to me. They talked for a bit after that, but soon Izuku was yawning and struggling to keep his eyes open. He only went up to bed at the insistence of his friends, because they knew he was coming down from an adrenaline high. He knew spilling your guts could be so tiring. He also told them all he would be fine going up by himself, and that it wasn't even all that late, so they shouldn't trouble themselves with him. They agreed reluctantly, if only because they knew he was being honest when he said he would be fine. And he knew he would be, because he knew he was going to pass out as soon as he hit the pillow. Or he would have, there hadn't already been knocking on his door when he was ready to sleep. He went up to answer it, and was surprised to find Shinso standing there sheepishly. Hey, what's... I'm sorry. What? Shinso rubbed his arm awkwardly. I wanted to apologize to you for what I said a while ago. I'm sorry. Izuku was drawing a blank. I don't know what you're talking about. He winced at his own words. Sorry, that was blunt. Shinso's lip quirked upwards. It's okay. It was a while back. I mean during the Sparks Festival, when I said that you didn't know what it was like to be born with nothing and how you had everything handed to you in life. He nodded slowly in realization before shrugging. It's okay. You couldn't have known. Shinso stared at him. But it's not okay. I assumed everything about you based only on what I saw in front of me. I was bitter about my own past and forgot that other people struggled too. That was a lot to unpack for sure, but Izuku did his best to keep his mouth shut of any questions. If Shinso wanted to share anything more with him, he would say something. He knew firsthand what it was like to have your secrets exposed. But still, he appreciated his words, enough to smile and force himself to speak carefully. Thank you. I appreciate it. Really. I forgive you. But I don't think there's really much to forgive. I understand. Because he definitely did understand being envious of those born with more privileges. Shinso hummed. Thanks. They said goodnight to each other, and Izuku was on his way to bed when another knock pierced through his room. Slightly annoyed with the fact that he wasn't able to sleep once again, he went to answer the door, but his heart melted at the sight of Shoto. I knew you were stretching the truth when you said you'd be fine, he said. I know you don't like being alone. Izuku couldn't help but smile and let him in. Fine, you caught me, but I'm still going to bed. I'm tired too. Want to cuddle? At that, his face turned beet red, and Izuku swore he could see steam coming from his left side. Sure, he said with a little laugh, face also red. They got into bed together, and it was the most comfortable Izuku had been in weeks. I like you like this. I like you like this. Is that bad? He said once they were both settled. They both faced each other, heads next to each other and arms around each other. Shoto shook his head. I don't think so. I like me like this too. Izuku hummed, letting his eyes slip shut. It was a moment before Shoto spoke again. I'm glad you told us. I never would have known. Izuku shrugged, exhaustion trying its best to claim him. I probably would have told you at least you eventually, and I meant what I said. I'm mostly fine now. Plus, it's nothing really compared to what you went through. I mean, it was different, but we had a lot of similar struggles that I didn't even know about until tonight. You didn't have a future. I had one I couldn't escape. Izuku's eyes shot open. What? Shoto had the audacity to laugh. Now you know how I felt earlier. Izuku hit him in the chest before pulling him close. That's not funny. Shoto held him tightly, but nonetheless said, It's a little funny. Nope, I won't have any of your dark humor in my bed. He pulled him closer and let himself tell the truth. I'm glad you're here. Shoto's breath hitched. I'm glad you're here too. Don't leave me, okay? I won't. Don't leave me either. I won't. Hey guys. This chapter took a lot shorter time to record. Um, Partly because it was a shorter chapter. Also, because I guess I was excited because I posted the first chapter. I'm like, I don't want to leave them on a cliffhanger because I don't like it when people do that. Because you want to listen to the podfic, but like also you want to finish the fanfiction. So there's that dilemma. But yeah, I'm opening these videos so close together because I still am not back in school yet because it's midwinter break. Um, but yeah, other than that, I don't really have much to say. If you could leave a comment, that'd be great. We could chat in the comments. You could like and subscribe, but again, no pressure. But really, that's it. Yeah. If you guys have any suggestions for any other fics I could do after this one, because I do have some fics that I do want to read on this channel, but I would also like to hear from you guys. I always love reading fics, so if you have any, just send them my way. Also, if you guys would be interested in seeing a sketchbook tour, because I told you guys this channel would be a mix of a few different things, and I have one sketchbook that I could show. But yeah, other than that, nothing much to say. So, see you guys next time. If anyone's watching this, my last video currently has like 2 views, and one of those views is me. So, yeah, hopefully that person will watch again. Alright. Anyways, bye. See you guys next time. Have a nice day. Don't forget to drink water. And eat something, please. Coffee does not count as a meal. Bye.